All right, designers and illustrators, today we're going to be talking about the paintbrush tool and the appearances panel. Let's dig in. We're going to go to File, Open, and you're going to go to the Courses folder, Art, Print Shop, Illustrator Lessons, and if you scroll to the bottom, there should be a file called Paintbrushing, and click Open. Let's save this in the cloud, in your Lessons folder, and I would like you to call it with your name, and then call it Paintbrush, and click Save. All right, so we're going to start first with a quick review of the paintbrush tool, and then we're going to do some fun and interesting effects with the tool, as well as learn how to create some custom brushes, and then also digging into the appearance panel, which is going to make its appearance for the first time in today's lesson. All right, I'm going to move over to my white space. In fact, I'm going to zoom out just a tad. Our paintbrush here has some very basic commands. We know that as a rule with the paintbrush tool, you can put both a fill and a stroke on it. So go ahead and change your fill color to some color other than white and black, and change your stroke color to some color other than white and black. And with your paintbrush tool, I just want you to click a stroke. Notice when it paints, it's going to paint with whatever your stroke color is. If I close my path in, I can fill it. I can also change it after the fact. So if I want to change it after the fact, I can fill it. Notice though that if I'm working with the paintbrush tool, it doesn't quite close completely. Even if I click on this one here and fill it, it's not entirely closed, because if I grab this and move this, notice it's not entirely closed. All right, let's go ahead and delete everything off our screen if you were playing around, because I want to show you how to close that. All right, with our paintbrush tool, if I want to close the path, if I click and draw an elliptical shape and I hold down the Alt key, when I close, now it is a solid fill. Even if I try to separate it, it's closed completely. So holding down the Alt key closes it. So go ahead and stop the video. Try to create a closed-in shape by holding down Alt as you finish drawing the shape. If you have any problems, call me over. All right. The next step is to draw a straight line. You can draw a straight horizontal line as a review by holding down Shift and dragging. If I want to do a completely vertical, I can hold down Shift and drag up. So stop the video and try that now. We're going to do lots of drawing and then deleting, and drawing and deleting. All right. We know up here are basic options for the brush tool. If I want to make my stroke bigger or smaller, I can always increase the size here. Notice it changes it after the fact. I can change it from uniform to some of these other settings depending on the tool. Now, most of these are only going to really work if I have a calligraphy-based tool or calligraphy-based brush. Our brush shape is here. So notice with a selected line, so I have a line selected, I can switch my brush shape even though I've already drawn it. I can add new brushes from the brushes library by clicking on the drop down in the corner and selecting new brushes. All right, so stop the video and review how to load those brushes now. All right, let's go back up and we're going to grab a very basic brush up at the top. And let's deselect any line we have selected. And to change our size for our brush tool, the quickest and easiest ways is to use your left and right bracket keys. My right bracket key is going to increase you to see the brush size getting bigger. If I hit the left, it decreases it. Right increases, left decreases. So stop the video and try that now. All right, let's go ahead and delete all of the stuff that's on our screen here. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the expanded brushes panel. So if you open up the brushes panel under window, I want you to see that this is the same box that if I click up here, notice it's the exact same. Okay, you've got your libraries in there, you've got your different brushes, your basic brushes. Okay, same and same. You'll also notice you have a new brush button that we're going to be using today. And if you click on the drop down, you can change this from a list or from a thumbnail to a list view. It just changes how you view it. So stop the video and try that now. All right, so with the basic brush selected, I want to show you what's called fidelity. So we're going to close that brushes panel. If I double click on the brush tool in the brushes in the toolbox, I'm going to get the brush tool options panel that pops up. And there's some options in here. You have something called fidelity, which is how smooth Illustrator will smooth out your line. It also has keep selected and edited stroke path. We're going to uncheck the edited stroke path. Keep selected means once I draw it, it's going to keep that selected. Okay, so that way I can make easy changes. The point of keeping it selected is I can make really fast changes without having to grab my selection tool and select it. Okay. What fidelity does, like I said, is how smooth or unsmooth. So I want you to move your fidelity down to accurate and click OK. And I want you to just draw a squiggle line. Now, if you haven't already grabbed the drawing tablet, you might want to do that for this lesson. Notice it draws it pretty much how your hand moved. If I double click on that brush tool and I take my fidelity all the way up to smooth and click OK. Now if I do that, notice Illustrator smooths it out quite a bit. Okay, so stop the video and try that now. All right, let's deselect those and get rid of those. All right, let's go back into our brushes options panel. So we're going to double click again. I like to leave my fidelity right in the middle. So it smooths it out a little bit, but not a ton. I always like to keep selected. And then I'm going to show you what the edit selected paths does. So click on this tool and we're going to put a pixel width of, let's do 15. And I'm going to show you what this does here. Okay, so stop the video. Fidelity in the middle, keep selected, edited select paths, and 15 for your pixel width, and click OK. Okay, so now I want you to just simply draw a curved, squiggly kind of line. All right, what that box does, that new box that we checked, is if I don't like that line, rather than having to select it and then deselect it again, if I just come back and say, nope, I got to redraw that again, like I was trying to trace something, I could try it again and release. Oops, hold on. Let me try that one more time. I'm going to take my pixel width up a little bit more. If I try to draw it again, notice it deletes the old one. So watch me do this again. So I'll show you what it does. It makes for quick changes because within 20, so I'm saying if I draw again within 20 pixels, erase the last line, that's the one I meant to have. Okay? I will be honest, this sometimes works great, sometimes doesn't. There, it worked, okay? So play with that a few times, stop the video, and see if you can get that option to work. So if you're making lots of little line changes, that's a good option to use. All right, now that you're done playing with it, let's take that back off. I personally don't like the edit selected paths, but some people like it. I wanted to show that to you today, but I do always keep the keep selected in there. All right. All right, let's talk about how to create a new brush. So we know that we've got some basic brushes in here, but we want to create a new brush. So either in the drop-down menu here in the control bar or up on our brushes panel, either way you want to do it, we're going to click this new brush button. There's lots of different brushes that we can create in here. We're going to start first with the calligraphic brush. And we're just going to click OK. We're going to make some changes here in just a second, but click OK. And I want you to just paint a straight line. Now, if we scroll down to where our new brush is, which was right here, and we didn't rename it, this is our calligraphic brush. If we double click it, we can make changes to this. And notice it changes it in the window because we have preview selected. If yours isn't changing, make sure that preview is selected. See how that works? Click OK, and you apply the stroke. I can continue changing that. So if I want to change my angle, I can change my angle. If I want to change the roundness. So that is always editable. This new brush that I've added in here. Okay, so stop the video, create a new calligraphy brush and just paint a straight line up at the top. All right, excellent. Now we're going to create a more complex brush. We're going to create a scatter brush. So I want you to grab the star tool, and we're going to click and make a star shape. I don't care what your fill and stroke is. We're going to grab our direct selection tool, and I want you to just enter or alter some of the points. I don't care. We're just going to make kind of a weird, funky shape here. Okay? Stop the video and do that now. All right. To turn this in a scatter brush, if I highlight or select that object, I go to my New Brush button, and this time I'm going to click Scatter and click OK. Let's name this. So I'm going to call this Weird Star. And I can already make some changes in here, but me personally, I like to just click OK. It's now added it here, and notice if I hover it says Weird Star. Now, if I take my brush tool, I make sure that I'm on Weird Star and I click and drag, notice it now paints with this shape. So stop the video and paint a stroke with that shape. Now this is why I like to do editing afterwards. It's still selected. I'm going to double click the thumbnail in the brushes panel on my Weird Star shape brush. I'm going to make sure preview is selected. And again, I can change my size. I can change the spacing. I can change the scattering of how far it scatters away. And the rotation. I also can change my size from fixed to random, which means it's going to do random sizes. I can do my spacing to random, so notice it randomly spaces. I can change my scatter to random and my rotation to random, and I can make it more or less. All right, so stop the video, make some changes, and click OK. All right, I want you to deselect that line. I want you to change your stroke color to a color other than the color that you were just using. I want you to click on that path we created and double click the options. Notice my key color is still the same. Okay, so watch now as I do this. I'm going to change my stroke color again. Grab my brush tool, click the same brush. Notice no matter what my stroke is, whatever that stroke was when I created it, that's what that color is going to be. Okay, so that's really important to keep in mind, is that you have to make sure that when you're creating your shape, your color stays the same size. All right, because normally stroke would change the color, but it doesn't here. All right. All right, we're going to create an art brush now. So we've got all these weird scatter brush effects. We're just going to leave them there. Over to the left, you should have a little stroke of color here, or some texture. We're going to object image trace this, ungroup, and I want to delete the white space that's around it so that I get a stroke that looks something like this. All right, stop the video and do that now. All right, we're going to turn this into a pattern brush, or excuse me, an art brush. So if I now select this, I go back to my new button. We're going to click on art brush, click OK. Just like always, I always click OK. I'm going to call this my textured art brush and click OK. Notice it's added it now to my brushes panel. If I grab my brush tool and I click and drag with this brush selected, notice I now paint with that shape that I've created. It's one long. Rather than it scattering like it did with the other ones, it's one long one. And I can make edits as well. So drag a stroke of this texture. We're going to double click. And notice you can change your scale to fit proportionate to your stroke of size. You can also change the width in here if I wanted to. All right, so make some changes, stop the video, and do that now. All right, so we've done a calligraphy brush, we've done a scatter brush, we've done an art brush. You'll notice there was something called a pattern brush. So let's scroll to the right here, and you're going to grab your brush tool. We're going to go back to a very basic brush, very simple line brush. And I want you to paint 3 lines. 1. And change the color again. And it's okay if they're kind of sloppy. So stop the video. I want you to do something that looks like this right now. 3 lines stacked on top of each other. All right. Now we're going to select that. Yep, we're going to go to the new brush button. We're this time going to call it a pattern brush and click OK. So we're going to create a pattern stroke, basically. Let's call this stripe pattern. And again, click OK. Notice now, if I scroll down, there's my striped pattern. If I grab my brush tool and I paint, if I switch to my pattern brush, notice it now has a pattern on it. Stop the video, paint a stroke with that patterned line now. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of the paintbrush tool. The big thing is knowing fidelity and how to create scattering brushes, how to create some new brushes, knowing that you can always edit brushes, shapes, lines later, okay, and how to load brushes. It's all in how you use it, how to layer it, how to know when to use it, when to use your other basic shape tools. Now we're going to talk about appearances though. The appearance panel is a little bit more complex, and in it we're going to get into graphic style. So scroll down to the white space. I know you got a lot of random strokes at the top. We're going to scroll down to the white space at the bottom. And I again want you to grab the star tool. I want you to put a fill and a stroke on it of differing colors, and we're going to click and drag a star shape. Great. I want you to click on your star shape, and we're going to add some effect. So this is a little bit of a reminder. Remember, you have effect up here. Most of the time for us, we're going to stay on this top portion, right? Because the bottom portion is more if you have a picture that you've placed in here, they're photographic filter effects. We stay more up in here, right? And the one we go to the most is probably your warp, stylize, and then that distort. But we're going to start here with stylize, and we're going to apply a drop shadow. Okay, this is review. We've done drop shadows before. So most of the time, you're just going to want to leave your mode set to multiply. You know you can change your offset. You know you can change your colors. You know if you have the preview option, it's going to show you what it looks like in the preview box. But go ahead and apply a drop shadow that is a contrasting color from your both fill and stroke color and click OK. All right, now we're going to select that object and we're going to open up the appearances panel. So in your appearances panel, it's going to show every effect that you've applied to an object. So we can see, it tells us we have a stroke on this thing. It is orange and it has 1 point. I can change that. So change it to a 2-point stroke. I can also change my fill color if I wanted to, straight from this panel. I can also change the opacity. If I double click on where it says opacity, I can change my opacity. So I'm double clicking and opens up the transparency panel. I can also see any special effects that applied. So if my drop shadow shows up here, I can double click on that and I can continue to change the colors and the offset. If I turn the eyeball on and off, it shows what it looks like, if it's there, if it's not there. If I don't like one, I can literally drag it down to the garbage and delete it. So go ahead and drag that drop shadow down to the garbage. All right, we can also from this panel apply 2 strokes. And this is where it's kind of cool. You've got some options at the bottom if you look where it says add new stroke, add new fill. So if I click on add new stroke, it's going to put a second stroke on here. I can change that color. I can take the weight down. And now, if you notice, if I zoom in, my star actually has 2 strokes. So I want you to have 1 stroke with 3 points and 1 with 1. I want you to make sure that your stroke with 3 points is underneath the one with 1. Because if if I put it opposite, and you can move these down in your order. Make sure your 3-point is one color and your 1-point is another color. If I wanted to add yet another, I could add yet another stroke. Oops, it would help if I had my star selected. So I want you to have a 3-stroke star, one with 1 point, one with 2 point, and one with 3 point. Notice you have to have varying points because if not, they just stack on top of each other. All right, so stop the video and do that now. All right, select your star again. We're going to apply that drop shadow again. Notice you've got a shortcut button. So if I click on FX down here, it's going to open up the drop down menu. There's all my options. We're going to go to Stylize and we're going to go to Drop Shadow. I want you to apply a drop shadow to this. If you can't see your drop shadow, you may need to move it down like I did onto the fill. So I just clicked and dragged and drug it down. All right, we're going to add yet one more effect. We're going to go to Stylize and let's go to, this time we're going to, actually before we do that, let's click on our fill. We're going to add a new fill to this. So click on the Add New Fill button. Let's change this to a contrasting color to what our star was to begin with. So I'm going to click a yellow. So we have two fills, okay? One's just stacked on top of the other right now. On the top fill, whatever your color is, mine happens to be yellow. With this active, I want you to go to your effect. I want you to go to distort, and I want you to go to pucker and bloat. And move this aside, make sure your preview is on. And I want you to pull it to pucker so that it pulls it in and click OK. So what it's done is it's basically stacked two stars on top of each other. We've puckered one and it's on top of the other. See how that works? All right, so this is a style effect. So this is literally just one, that's all we did. We had one star shape, that's all we did. And with one simple shape, we came up with this effect. If I wanted to save this as a style, I can do that. So if I click on my object here and I click on the graphic styles panel, which should by default show up with the appearances. If it doesn't, go up to Window, open up your graphic styles, but mine showed up. Notice you've got some graphic styles in here. There's not a lot. There are more that you can add, but we've just created our own. If we click on this button where it says New Graphic Style, and now it's added it to there. All right, so go ahead and add that graphic style, and then deselect. We're going to zoom out a little bit. I want you to grab the rectangle tool. Make sure that this new graphic style is selected and I want you to click and drag. Notice it's doing the basic fill and stroke I have, but when I release, if I click on that, it's going to apply the same effect with the drop shadow and the pucker and the layered that I had before. All right, so stop the video and try that now. All right, we're going to zoom all the way out. All right, so we have a mess here. But we learned a lot. Even though it looks kind of messy, we don't have a finished product, we've learned about the brush tool a little bit more. We've learned about those styles and we've learned about the appearance panel. Your appearance panel is your friend because it works for every object. No matter what I click on, it's going to give me all the appearances. So I can continue to add strokes, I can add effects. This panel here, appearances, once you start getting into more complex illustrations and you start adding more effects, this is going to become very, very beneficial. If you have time left in class, I want you to be playing around today. I want you to go into those effects. I want you to play around with as many of the effects as you can. I want you to practice saving graphic styles. I want you to practice with your brush tool as much as you can. I want you to feel comfortable going into the next section in class. Good job. Make sure you invite me to this now that you are done. And you are done with the lesson. Good job.